And we're live.
Hey, gang. Welcome to Beyond the Process, where we talk about the art of storytelling. I'm your host, Shane Patrick White, and joining me as always is my co-host and personal chef, Lance Ospina.
How's it going, everyone?
Today, we're going to talk about a few subjects that are near and dear to our hearts. One is pricing our work and our time in storyboards and comic books, as well as taking your questions. Any questions you have along the way, you can add them to the chat, and we'll do our best to give you a solid answer. And if we can't, we'll make something up.
Of course, yeah. And don't forget, we're also going to be doing some live drawing while we're discussing everything. So, Shane, you're going to be inking Mark Schultz piece. Is that correct? In Clip Studio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a beautiful pencil rendering of Hannah Dundee from his Xenozoic Tales, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs series. And I've inked his work before, traditionally, but I've never done a digital inking job on it. So we'll see what we can do and give it a shot.
All right. Cool. And in turn, then I'm going to take a turn at demonstrating how I personally do a storyboard, how I create a storyboard frame. So I'm going to take you through like my rough blue line sketches, how I turn those into cleaned up pencil lines and then shading, all that. So stay tuned. And then I'm also gonna show different ways of sketching. So the various ways you can either sketch with a hard pencil essentially, or a very soft, messy kind of scribbling. And then the third method would be kind of just blocking in almost like a silhouette with like a big broad shading brush, and then going back in and adding details later. So stay tuned for all of that. It's gonna be a fun time. But anyway, let's ask who is watching us right now. So anyone out there, if you don't mind throwing something in the chat, or just let us know where you're watching from.
Yeah, it's always good. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm out of Seattle, so and you are sort of what, mid-state?
I'm Central Coast, California.
Okay, I always forget what they call that.
Yeah. Well, there's the Mid-State Fair, so they call it the Mid-State Fair, but where I live is Central Coast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I think we did have one question that cropped up over the past week or so from what was it? Friend of
Hector.
yours?
Hector,
yeah. And his question was what? It was like the top 3 books or
top 3 books on how to storyboard. But we're gonna I guess what's the word? It's not going to be held just to storyboarding. It's going to be more to visual storytelling, correct?
Right.
We don't have 3 books on just storyboarding. So we're going to expand, I guess, the question to include visual storytelling in general.
I think what's interesting about it is that there isn't a lot of really good books on storyboarding. There are some, and I'm hoping in the near future to change that. So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk about that more.
Are you dropping a little hint?
No, dropping a big hint.
Dropping a big hint.
Trying something new. So do you want to start off with your top pick?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I should have captured an image of it. It's by the same author though. So there's a gentleman, his name is Stephen Katz, and he originally wrote a book called Shot by Shot. And in that book, he had an entire section devoted to storyboarding. And that was probably like the first book that I ever came across that had anything to do with storyboarding. In fact, I went to film school not even knowing what storyboarding was, which is terrible. I had to find out when I was in school. And I think I mentioned this in the interview that I did with you a long time ago. They didn't even have a storyboarding class. Unless you're in the animation arm of the film school. So I couldn't even take storyboarding classes if I wanted to. But so it was kind of left up to me to find out like what storyboarding was by, looking at books. And I'd mentioned before, like the very first book that I saw. It wasn't a how-to storyboard, but it was a book on, it displayed all the storyboards for the making of Jurassic Park.
Right.
Just by looking at those, I kind of figured things out. And then I got the book Shot by Shot. Now, this is not the book, but this is another book that Stephen has written, and he also covers storyboarding in this too. So this is called Cinematic Motion Film Directing. And so in the book, he actually uses storyboards to demonstrate staging and different techniques and that sort of thing. So you can still, obviously, this would be very useful not only for storyboarding but for filmmaking in general, which is a prerequisite for any storyboarders as well. It's like you can't just go off of being a good artist. You have to know film and film language and be able to communicate that with a director. So I would highly recommend something like this or his book Shot by Shot, or both.
Yeah. Sometimes in the backs of books, they actually will have the cover of other books that he's done. So you could check, sometimes there are specialty publishers that put out specifically film stuff. So
very good, Shane.
Well, so there it is.
Yeah, there's Shot by Shot. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Now that's the one I read because I borrowed your copy when we were working together. And
correct.
And I had not worked in storyboards before that, and that was the impetus to get me on the fast track to storyboarding for games. So
nice, excellent. So what's the book that you have that you're gonna show to everyone?
I've actually got a couple, and let me start off with the more technical one. This is a book by Gustavo Mercado called the Filmmaker's Eye. And what's great about this book, and also I'm not saying it's downfall, but it is very dense. It's got let me lay it out for you here. So they will talk about, say, an extreme long shot, right? And then they'll break it down by using actual film examples. And they'll tell you why it works, why you might want to use it. And then there'll be like real technical considerations that you have to deal with and how to break the rules of that shot. And I think I learned more about storytelling and composition with this book than anything else, as opposed to storyboarding, which is also very, very important. And this was put out by Focal Press. So if you check out the focalpress.com website, you should be able to find a copy for yourself. Highly recommend it. And
excellent.
You want me to show this other book? The one that we both like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So Marcos Matau Mestre, is that how you would say?
That's a good enough guess. Yeah. I know. Not exactly.
He put out a book called Framed Ink, and in it he exhaustively covers some and he does it in a way that just is gorgeous. He has just gorgeous illustrations, and I think that's one of the rare things when you see storyboarding books is that the renderings are not always that good.
True.
But he covers every kind of angle, every kind of approach, and he does a really good job explaining it.
Now, remind me, Shane, is it strictly storyboarding or is it visual storytelling? Because I thought aren't there some comic book principles in there as well?
Yes. And he talks about composing for continuity. So there are more, it's more about storytelling.
Okay.
But, there are some comic book type stuff in the back, but
right.
He's not primarily a comic book artist. And if you are familiar with comic books, you might look at his stuff and say, it's not really right on the head, but he has the spirit of it down. Yeah. So I'm not going to be, overly critical.
But as a visual storytelling guide, it's amazing. It's incredible. Amazing. Yeah.
And as a bonus, I'm just going to throw this out here because I really, really wanted to share this. And most artists are just absolutely afraid of it. But he did 2 books on perspective. One is like super thick, and it's amazing. It's called Frame Perspective. And then he did a sequel, which really kind of focuses more on the human form in perspective.
Okay.
So you can check those out on your
Yeah.
own. That it's not
Yeah.
quite storytelling, but excellent building tools for
Hmm.
doing what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a super talented artist who makes it look really easy.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
just like you look at his drawings and you can see that they're messy. And you could tell he probably draws pretty quickly,
yeah.
but he knows where to spot the blacks and build the composition so that he directs your eye exactly to where he wants it to go. It's amazing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, do you think we should start sharing some screens, or what would you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, does anyone have any question? I'm curious to know if anyone has any of these books and what you think. Like, does
Yeah,
does anyone have shot by shot, cinematic motion, framed ink, or what's the other one that you mentioned?
the filmmaker's eye, and
Yeah, Filmmaker's Eye. I'm just curious if anyone has those books and
or
what you've gotten out of it.
or if there's something that we've missed that you could totally
Yeah,
recommend, because I mean,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, because I know that there are a lot of dedicated storyboarding books out there. I
yeah,
just haven't read through them, so I can't really
yeah,
speak on them that much.
that's so true. It's that's one thing I did try to do is read every book that I buy, just because they are so dense,
Oh,
you know.
okay. So here we got a comment. This is
Oh, look at
good.
that, Neo Tifa,
Neotifa. I have them. They're
nice.
really good. Neo, which ones do you have? Do you have all of them, or which ones are you particularly talking about? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, it's weird because it's like over the years I've collected books and I'm always on the lookout. They
Okay,
have
so
3.
yeah.
Okay, nice. Well, that's not bad. 2 out
All
of
right.
3,
Yeah.
3 out
Yeah.
of 4. That's really good.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, over the years, I'm always on the lookout for really good books, and that way I can recommend them or put them
Mhm.
in my list of books to suggest to people, which
Sure.
is, is always helpful because, you get people who are starting out in their career, they're always, trying to
Mm.
get the latest and greatest.
Oh, so here, let me. Okay, so Robert says I have the frame perspective books. Okay, cool. And then Neo drawing techniques, framed ink 1 and 2. All right.
Oh, I forgot he did a sequel to
He
Framed
did.
Ink.
Yeah. There you
Did you
go.
get it?
No, I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay, yeah, I didn't get it either. I
Neo,
was,
maybe you could tell us about it.
yeah. Is it worth it? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it
well,
is.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
But he's done a lot of work with some top Hollywood directors like Spielberg and
Mm,
on some major films.
mhm.
And if you look at his work, you can obviously tell
Yeah.
he's been doing it a while, and he's got a lot of
Mhm,
respect.
mm. Neo says it's been years, but I remember it being good. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's true.
awesome.
It always merits a second reading, at least, if not more than that.
Yeah,
I need to go back and reread mine as well because I'm sure there are a lot of principles I've forgotten.
yeah. I keep
So,
them fairly close to
mm,
my drafting table and my
mhm.
computer station, just
Good.
because
Yeah,
it's like a quick answer, or like, oh, hey, yeah, I need to keep
e-
reading, keep moving
exactly.
forward.
Yep. Yep. Cool.
So
All right. So, who do you want to go first here?
I don't mind
You
getting
want?
started, but why
Okay.
not?
Well, yeah. Why don't you get started? Because yours is probably going to take a long time. Although, I mean, each might take a long time. But
Okay. Let's see.
another comment by Neo. I think it detailed mood, energy, etc. How framing
Mm,
affects it. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. He's a master at that. Like I said, he makes it look easy. Then when you try and do it, it's a little bit more difficult.
yeah.
Oh,
So let's see. I want to reframe this screen so I can show you my screen. What's the
yeah. Did
best
you
way to
do it?
do?
Okay.
I don't know if I did. Probably not. Hmm. Let's see. Well, no, I'm probably screwing
Technical
this up.
hit. Are you on the present
Yeah,
down the? Okay.
at the bottom, but yeah, I can't.
Yeah. Oh. Oh,
This is the
really?
first time we're doing this is
Share
like
screen. Oh.
we're learning. We're learning.
Um. Let me see here. If I could get. Oh, that's just my screen now.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you start
There you
since
go.
you're already
Okay.
since you're already there?
Since I'm there. Sure. All right. So I'm going to try and quickly go through and actually speak through as I'm drawing how I create a storyboard frame. So obviously every artist is independent. They have their own method of doing it. This is only my method. I'm not saying it's the only method, but this is the way I do it. And if you get any kind of help from it, use, then that'd be great. So I'm gonna end up sketching a frame that I had drawn in a previous for a film. It was called Scenic Route. It's a kind of like a fight scene going on between these two guys. They're actually friends. They took a long trip out into the desert. Their truck broke down, and then the shit hits the fan. They start getting on each other's nerves, and they break out into this fight.
Yeah.
So this is one of the scenes that that's happening. So when I sketch, I like to grab kind of a messy, soft brush, because I don't want to get lost too much in detail. Right off the start, I'm just trying to block in my shapes, and I also like to sketch in non-photo blue. This goes back to my traditional days whenever I would show up on site for my jobs, and I'd carry like a toolbox full of art supplies, and I always would sketch with non-photo blue first, and then I would go back over and ink. So it's just it's just a tradition that I haven't been able to break. I kind of like the look of non-photo blue as well. I think it looks really cool. So, and then what I do is, I don't know how well you can see my screen here. Hopefully, I'm not sure if I could zoom in. I don't think you could zoom in on the live stream, but essentially, so I have my layers set up here on the right side, and I have so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, essentially 5 layers. My lowest layer is called a rough sketch, and that's the one that I use to roughly sketch in the figures. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And I usually turn the opacity down to 50% because I want it to be very light. I don't want it to like influence what I'm drawing. So here we go. So this is one of the figures who is this guy has a mohawk. I'm trying to remember what the name of the guy. He's actually a famous actor. Well, he used to be a famous actor, not so much anymore.
It's interesting how fame can be fleeting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was on a soap opera, and then he actually did some movies after that, because I think that's why he stopped doing the soap opera gig, is because he was back into doing films and everything. And then
nice
ever since now, oh gosh, what's his name? He's now like a huge advocate for animal rights and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So
nice.
So as you can see here, I'm just like can you see my screen? Okay.
I can see your screen.
Okay, good. Okay. So I'm just like roughly blocking in characters. And this is, I was going to go over a few different ways to draw, or to sketch in things, but this is probably like the method I use the most. It's a little slightly messy, but not so much that you can't tell what's going on.
Now, this is the technique you use anytime you storyboard, or is it
well,
special things?
No, pretty much every time that I storyboard, this is the method. I'm going to slide him up a little bit into frame here.
Nice.
That's the one. Obviously, the good thing about digital is that you can move things around.
Right.
Back when I was drawing traditionally, if there was a revision or or just a change in perspective, essentially, like that would just redraw everything. Or like, let's say you have a frame that you're working on, and the next frame is the same angle, same shot, same background, and everything. Like these days, you can easily copy and paste the background, whereas prior, you would have to redraw the entire background again.
Oh boy, yeah. I think I used to keep backgrounds on like separate sheets of paper, and I do a lot more light boxing.
Oh yeah. I never. That's funny. I mean, light boxes are fairly heavy. At least the one that I have is. So I
Right.
never would carry that with me on a job. It was just too big and bulky to do. But
The first light box I ever had is one I built, and it weighed about 30 pounds. It
oh
was
gosh,
it was made out of particle board and like a light from a kitchen light or something with a big piece of glass all
yeah,
beveled, and I taped like tracing paper behind the glass so it would diffuse it. I brought it to art school. It was I didn't know they actually made them, so
yeah. Well, the one I bought was from a guy who homemade it as well. He was selling it on like Craigslist or something
oh,
like that.
nice.
And this is a cast on this guy's leg, by the way. It's not.
Mm.
I'm not like just drawing a fat leg. Yeah, he had broken his leg and was hobbling around on crutches.
Old
But
fat leg.
yeah, old fat leg. But anyway, yeah, the board I bought was already made. It was the guy actually did a really nice job.
Nice.
I think a lot of people do home make them because it's not that hard, right?
Well, no, but nowadays they have LED versions made by
Oh,
Huon, Huon, and
oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
know that
about
company. Yep.
3/8 inch thick. It's super lightweight, and they come in a really large size, and you can dim them or brighten them, so they have controllers on them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't use it as much
Yeah.
as I used to, but it's nice to have when you really do need it.
So it's lighter weight too
Oh,
because the
absolutely.
LEDs. Yeah. Is
Yeah,
that the
and it doesn't heat up.
right? That's a maybe I can modify mine to be LED.
Sure, sure. So on a
Uh-huh.
job like that, now was
Yeah.
that for an agency or a film
Now,
company?
so this was for a couple of guys who I met playing hockey, believe it or not.
Oh, ice
Um,
hockey or deck hockey?
deck hockey, yeah. And it's funny because I think I knew that they were two brothers and they were a team. They were a directing team,
Hmm,
and
nice.
I'm pretty sure I knew it at the time, and we used to talk shop. But it's funny because I end up getting a gig working with them
Hmm,
unknowingly through my agent. So she
nice.
booked me on a job, and it turns out like these two guys are the directors on the commercial.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
because that's primarily what they did was commercials, and so this was their first movie that they did, and so they needed this one scene storyboarded, which was the fight scene because it was more complicated.
Right.
And let me see, let me say this. So yeah, I just kind of I did it for the friend rate essentially.
Speaking of rates,
Yes, yes, yeah, very
what?
good.
How do you range? How do you create ranges of rates for clients? Like when you're working with them
Yeah,
with through your agency versus on your own?
yeah. Well, my agency they have their own rates, of course, and then they take a fairly large percent. They take like 25%
Wow.
of the rate. Yeah. So obviously
Hmm.
I don't make nearly as much whenever I get a job through my agent as opposed to on my own. But as far as like how I um, manage my own rates, I don't
Mhm.
really have multiple rates. I have a day rate and then I have what would be like an hourly rate essentially. And I have like a weekday rate and then a weekend holiday rate. So they're
Okay.
two different things. So I charge
Right.
more for weekends and holidays because I don't really ever
Yeah.
work on weekends and holidays. So if you want me, then it's going to cost a little bit more. But yeah, normally I know that you can like I think when I was first starting out, I was pricing things. Well, first of all, I wasn't charging nearly enough, so take that with a grain of salt. But um, I was also pricing things based off of like frames. Like so I would, because I think some people still charge per frame.
Wow. No,
Um,
can't do that.
yeah, yeah. Which I mean, it depends on, obviously, like there's so many factors. Anyone who out there who is a storyboard artist knows this. There's so many factors. Like I love the question, how long does it take you to draw, 20 frames. It's like, well, what's the scene? What
Yep.
detail level? Black and white shade? Is the shading? Is it color?
Right.
How many people are like, obviously I try and explain to people the easiest way, who's someone who's not an artist who asked that question. It's like,
Right.
okay, a battle scene with thousands of people is going to take like
Right.
100 times longer than it would take me to draw a close-up of someone's face.
Right.
It's just relative. So it all, you can't really answer that question accurately. It's just, there's so many factors involved. So anyway, so people they'll base their board or the rate on the number of frames or however many frames, but yeah, I don't do that. I just do,
Right.
I just do like a day rate, and people, when they ask me, like, well, they want to know how much can you get done in a day or whatever. And I'm like, well, and I try and give them examples if they have, if they've looked at my portfolio.
Right.
By the way, real quick, I'm just showing something. I'm using SketchBook Pro, by the way. I forgot to let people know that. And one of the reasons I love SketchBook Pro is because of it has all these super cool tools. One of them being an ellipse tool. So you can draw perfect circles and concentric circles, which is really cool. Like, so for example, I'm going to draw a tire now, so if I do this, and then I could just shrink it in a little bit, draw the inner part of the tire, and then the hubcap and so forth. I'm not going to get too detailed. Oh, I didn't lock it down, so I moved it. But so you get the idea there. And then, all right, I'm just going to roughly block in a background here.
I think it's one thing I love about SketchBook Pro is that the French curve tools and all those guides are par none. Like nobody else does.
No, but other people, like, I know Clip Studio Pro, it's kind of frustrated me because
it's overly complicated.
It's overly complicated. Yeah, and just to simply draw parallel lines, like, or straight like horizontal or vertical lines, like this. Or actually, let me I'll go on another layer here so you can see. I'll make this bigger. So these are perfectly straight, right? I'm holding the shift key down and doing this, and then same thing if I want to go horizontal. Now in Photoshop, if you try doing this by holding the shift key down, you're going to get that annoying, like,
thick
line. Well, no, what happens is you have to keep letting go of the shift key.
Right.
Like, so if you do this and then you go to do another one, it draws a line between the two.
It connects the last.
Yes, it connects the last point to the next point, and it drives me insane.
Yeah.
So let me take this comment down. Sorry. Oops. And then on Clip Studio Pro, you can't hold the shift key down and do this. You have to use their tool, like a line tool, which obviously SketchBook Pro has one of these as well. So you can, if you want to do, like, here, let me clear this out. If you want to do like a quick perspective, like, 1 point perspective, say,
right,
you can just do this. I mean, it actually I'm using the line tool to do this. It actually has, a dedicated perspective tool, which I'll show you that in a second here.
That's pretty awesome.
I feel like I'm doing a demo for SketchBook Pro, but it is such a good tool. I want people to know about it if they don't. So this would be a 2 point perspective. If you could see my little cursor here. So, oops, I should lock this down. I can't lock it. Okay, so that way when you lock it, then you can't accidentally move it. If you're doing lines, it won't drag the handles or anything like that. So what I'm doing now is it'll automatically, like, lock into that. Oops, now those are vertical, but it's locking into that perspective.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Line. And then same thing with this point as well. So you get, like, you can quickly do 2 point perspective.
Right.
Yeah, just by using one tool, which is pretty cool. So
that's really badass, man.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool. And then the French curves, let me show you those really quickly if I can find them. I don't actually use those too much because I use they have a tool that is it's like smoothing. It kind of smooths your line, and
Mhm.
you can adjust how much it smooths. So I'll put it on here and then crank. So right now it's only at 4. So this is giving me a smooth line. So I could actually draw a circle and it'll snap to a circle, right? Which is
Nice.
pretty cool. And then same thing with like a straight. Oh, not there. There we go. Straight line. It's snapping. I don't know if you can see that. It starts
Yeah.
off curvy and then it snaps. So I use this a lot whenever, like, instead of pulling out a ruler, I just
Right.
use this. If I'm like blocking in, sometimes I'll hold the shift key down for my verticals or horizontals, and then I'll just do like radial perspective like this, just with, just using that without even using the ruler tool, which is really cool.
Nice. Yeah.
And then let me see. Why can't I find the French curves? I don't use them very often, like I said. Let me see here. It's got to be in the rulers. Anyway,
Yeah. I haven't used Sketchbook Pro in a long time.
Yeah,
so.
it's been a while since I've used the French curves. All right, back to this. I'm almost done here, sketching this out. Yeah, it's pretty much done. So, okay, so that's my rough blue line layer. Probably want to compose this a little bit better so the guy's head isn't like right on the edge of the frame, but it'd be something like that. And then what I would do is I go in and just like clean up, and I'm not going to draw the whole thing because it'll take too much time. I'll pick one character and then I'll work on him. So now, it depends on the clarity of what you want to go for. Like I might actually use the same brush. If I'm trying to work fast, a looser brush that doesn't make you noodle too much is always the best choice. So for example, like when I go darker here, I'll show you what I mean. So like just by drawing in his facial features, like his eyes and so forth, like I can't really I don't know if you can see how soft this is, but it kind of like it leaves it up to your imagination. Like you're not putting in pupils and everything, you're just,
and you're not zooming in infinitely either.
No, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and then like for hair, I usually make the brush like really fat, so I could like block it in really quickly, that sort of thing.
Right.
And then this particular guy has a.
You certainly have to put in these control measures. That way you don't over-index on certain panels or frames.
Exactly. Yeah. I still suffer with that to this day, like because I can be a perfectionist, and I know storyboards. Yeah, I know. Yeah. You of all people definitely know that.
I don't know what you're talking
about. Yeah, I know. But no, I still find myself like trying to make things perfect or look really good when in reality, hardly anyone's going to end up seeing this. Now,
a good rule of thumb that I've found is, and I've heard it from other people, is if you zoom in twice, then just make sure that's it. And that's kind of enough to get it across, and especially when you're inking comic books. It's that infinite zoom because you're working at 600 DPI versus working in storyboards, which I work at 600 DPI, but the frames are really, really small. So when I actually cut them out, they can print on 8.5 by 11. But
sure, good, yeah, those are actually really good points.
So, kind of going back to pricing a little bit.
Yeah.
So you do a day rate.
I do a day rate, yeah.
Typically, and so if you get a job and it's only a half day's worth of work, how do you do? You just do half a day?
I do. My minimum. Well, okay, minimum for starting a job is a half a day, and if I'm already on a job. And let's say like I work like 2 days on a job, and then the third day they might have like a few revisions. My minimum then is 2 hours worth of work. Even if it takes me a half an hour, I still charge for 2 hours.
Okay.
Just because I have to block out my schedule to work. Like I don't really have a literal free day. I'm working.
Right.
So it has to be worth my while to work. So I want to charge something that is worth my while, essentially, to like block out that time to do it, even if it only takes me half an hour. And they don't know how long. I mean, each art, like another artist, it might take him an hour and a half, but for
Right.
me, it takes me half an hour. So I'm not gonna like not get paid. And that's one thing that I'm trying to wrestle with lately, is being paid for time instead of for the work that you do. Like
Mm,
storyboard artists have always been paid for time, it seems like. It's always an hourly, weekly, or day rate
right.
instead of like project. Like it'd be great if someone said, I'll give you $15,000 to do this,
Oh, that's nice.
you
Yeah.
know, but you have to be confident and know in your ability that you can do it. Um,
Right.
you have to be fast enough and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's something, like I said, I've been struggling with. It's hard because I know it works in the design industry. You can charge per project essentially. But
Yeah.
storyboards, for whatever reason, you're always getting paid for time. And I'm trying to break that, but I haven't quite figured it out.
Yeah,
You know?
I think there's a lot more nuance, and because each frame is its own, it's almost like its own separate design, and that can really
Yeah.
snowball.
Yeah.
So,
True. Yeah.
so I think a large part of that is you'd have to really dig down and figure out how to do it, like you're going through right now, and make
Yeah.
it work for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
The other thing too, when you bring up half a day, it's a day
Yeah.
rate. It's like when you schedule and say you've got a back to back job with another client, it's like you can say I have a half day here.
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
I can't start this until 5. Like then that's just kind of weird.
Right.
So if you're
Exactly.
saying I've got
Mhm.
to block out my time, then half a day
Yeah.
is a half day, whether it's 2 hours or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. How do you do it? If someone would come to you with a job and it only is going to take you an hour to do it,
Yeah.
would you charge a minimum half day?
No, I
Where
charge
where would
hourly.
do you
I'm
really?
Yeah, I'm different than
Wow.
you in that regard, and it's also because I'm probably a very bad business person. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it. It's like um, I'm I'm interested in giving the client the best work they can get at a very fast and at a reasonable rate.
Sure.
But I'm also really interested in getting back to my own projects.
Right.
So
Right.
I just don't do it that way. And it's also because up in Seattle, there's not as much storyboard work, and so I want to respect the industry and keep the margins tight.
Yeah.
Whether it's time or money. Um, but I'm not giving it away either.
Sure.
So if there are changes, it's like it's hourly.
Yeah.
Everything's hourly, and
Yep.
I don't mind. I don't mind. It's just I haven't suffered from it. If I was in LA, that's a different story because then
Yeah.
you're in the market with other people who are doing what you're doing, and that makes more sense.
Right.
Like I would
True.
totally do it that way because
Yeah.
there's an expectation around that. Here,
Yeah.
not so much.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Huh.
Yeah. Um,
Um, hmm. So
yeah.
if something only took you half an hour, you'd only charge it half an hour?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. You'd be starving on my income. No, there are certain things where it's just like uh, I call them opportunity costs. Where
Yeah.
I'll if I'm working on an animatic and there's rendering and
Yeah.
there's rendering time, I charge for that. You know,
Right. Okay. Okay. That's
um,
good.
because my computer
Yeah.
is being used, and
Yeah.
even if I'm not physically working, I do
Right.
that.
Okay.
But I don't know. I just really enjoy working with the clients that I have. I'm always just trying to. I'm not trying to undercut myself at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If for instance, if there's a weekend and they want me to work on the weekend, I'm like, well, it's time and a half. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
rush job,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then it's 20% on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's like I'm 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 basically setting the rules of
Yeah.
engagement, and that makes me feel good. If I
Mm-hmm.
were to say half a day this or half a day that, I don't get so much work that I need to work out my schedule. I
Mm-hmm.
get
Okay.
enough work that makes me happy that I get paid, and then I have
Mm-hmm.
some time to do my own stuff.
Okay.
So
Very good. Yeah, I think everyone's individual in that aspect, right?
yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
kind of have to find out what works for you. Obviously, you got to please the client. Like,
right,
it's got to be. You always have to consider that. But within that framework, you can kind of develop your own rates and that sort of thing. But you do want to make sure you're getting compensated for what you do.
right. I
Yeah.
have like three tier or levels of um, rates that I hand out. There's
Mm-hmm.
the friend rate, like you were saying. It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's yeah, I know 55 to $75 an hour or something.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Then there's like a small indie film rate or whatever.
Yeah.
It could be 75 and to 80, 90,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. There's
Mm-hmm.
a mid-size and 90 to
Mm-hmm.
100, and then
Yeah.
there's corporate,
Mm-hmm.
110 to 150 and
Mm-hmm.
beyond. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
the
And
uh,
beyond.
get out of my face with that garbage rate, which
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
throw out
Exactly. Yeah.
rarely, but sometimes
Yeah.
if I don't want to do the job, I'll be like, I'm
Yeah.
300 an hour,
Yeah.
they'll be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Has it ever worked in your
Yeah,
favor where you
it
actually,
actually
wow,
has.
wow, that's awesome.
I've made some stupid money on a really crappy job, and it was just like, okay. I've even had clients say, charge us whatever, we need this by Monday. I was
Wow.
like, what? That
That's,
never happens. So,
that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
but
That's pretty sweet.
I've worked with them before. They liked what I did. So they
Mm-hmm.
were,
Mm-hmm.
apologetic and
Yeah.
at the same time, really engaged.
Okay.
So
And they knew, well, they knew you could get it
they knew
done
what they were
too.
going to get,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and that
Yeah.
I was going to solve
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think reliability goes a really long way with a client.
Absolutely.
Once you establish, because it'll trump talent, right?
Yeah.
Once you have proven yourself to a client that you're reliable, you can get the job done, and that you're easy to work with. That's another big factor.
Right.
Because artists aren't always easy to work with. I know I was at fault for that early in my career. Um,
What?
yeah, yeah, believe it or not, yeah, yeah. And I try and I try and be like super nice no matter what the situation now, how matter ridiculous it is that I think, or how many
Right.
revisions I get, the requests. I just try and always be polite. And yeah, I mean, if you're getting paid by the hour, it's like, okay, as
Exactly.
frustrating as it is to draw something 3 or 4 times, and especially when they keep changing their mind. It's not like the drawing's not good or the whatever, it's not working. It's just that they just keep changing their mind. They want to see it different ways.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's not very rewarding to have to do that mentally, but you're still getting paid. So it's like, shut up and do the work, right? Like, just be cool about it.
Right.
But anyway, getting back to what that all factors into is that it means that people are, whenever they do have an urgency that they need something done, they know the person who they're going to call, and that's going to be you, because you've come through for them in the past. You've been frictionless, you've worked well and got the job done, and they're the first person, or you're the first person that they're going to think of whenever they need something in a hurry. And then maybe
Exactly.
that's when you can kind of bump up your rate for that purpose.
No,
Yeah.
that's a really good
Yeah.
point.
So real quick, I'm pretty much, I mean, I wasn't talking through the last phase. So obviously I sketched out, you could see it, what it looks like. So the blue line, I'd go over, clean it up with a little bit darker pencil, and then I'll just go in and add a little bit of shading. Now,
Nice.
I don't shade on every project. It depends on how much time I have, and I guess the level of detail they're looking for, and also sometimes a project kind of requires shading, like especially if it's at nighttime. It's really hard
Right.
to make something look like it's at night when you're not shading. So there are certain times when like I'll definitely shade no matter how much time I have to finish the job. It's like I just have, in order to express what the shot should be looking like, it's necessary sometimes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to share your screen?
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
Okay.
I'm gonna be stupid here because I forget how to do it now.
Okay.
Just
Go to present
present.
and then just
Okay.
share screen. Yeah. I'm gonna
Oh.
stop sharing mine
Okay.
so you can put yours in there, and then you just have to choose which window
There it
it
is.
is. There
Here
we
we
go.
go.
All right. Woo!
Awesome.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Yeah. So I got started on this piece by Mark Schultz. It's a Hannah Dundee, and I'm inking it in Clip Studio. He does literally the fullest of pencils, so you're never going to miss any details.
Mm-hmm.
And in most cases, I would do a dry brush technique if I were doing this traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted to do dry brush in Clip Studio, I guess I could do that, but I'm not doing that today because I've never done it, and I'm not about to experiment
Yeah.
and
On
really.
live. Yeah. Now, have you made any of your own brushes in Clip Studio?
No,
Okay.
but not technically. I've
Yeah.
imported my Photoshop brushes, and
Okay.
then I've
That
had to
that you made in
yeah,
Photoshop? Okay.
and then I've had to rejigger them and
Hmm.
to make them work.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll drop the pencil layer down about 20% or so, so I can
Hmm.
at least see it. I
Hmm.
started the head a little earlier, and then adding the body.
Oh, cool.
And
That's nice that you did it in layers like
yeah, I
for
wasn't going to reveal
demonstration
the
purposes.
head just
Yeah.
yet, but
Okay.
well, I made a mistake. So
Uh,
I'm actually just approaching this a little bit differently than maybe the way, well, obviously the way Mark Schultz would have intended.
yeah.
Normally, I might have come in and done a bit of cross hatching and building it up. That way, you sort of get the halftone effect.
Hmm.
And I think for the amount of time we have, I'm just doing it more traditionally in terms
Hmm.
of like, let's just cut to the chase and get to the black and the white and
Right. Right.
not overly render it.
Yeah.
And it gives you a different look. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the beauty of this. The solid drawing will always come through,
Hmm. Yep.
and I'm just going to follow that as much as possible and make some really hard choices about
Hmm.
what to make black and what to keep white, and then figure out my transitions. And I think I hear your cat in the
Yeah.
background.
I think he might be hungry.
Isn't that interesting?
Let me ask you a question, and then I'll go feed him.
Okay.
Are you going to use the same brush throughout the entire thing, or do you sometimes switch brushes as you're going?
I just use the same one. It's a tapered textured pen,
Okay.
and yeah, I don't really. I'm not a big fan of switching brushes, and that might be because I'm somewhat lazy.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm guilty of the same thing.
I just don't. I
Um,
don't know why.
but are you constantly changing the size of the brush?
Nope.
Hmm.
No, I find a size that I like, and then
Hmm.
I stick with it unless I'm doing a scene. If I'm doing a
Hmm.
scene, then obviously there's foreground, middle ground, and
Yep.
background,
Yep.
and I have it set to 20 pixels. I believe that's how it's measured out, and then I work with it that way.
Okay.
And if I need to make certain call outs or
Hmm.
whatever, I'll adjust the brush.
So you find a size that works great with pressure,
Yes.
meaning that you can draw a thin line with light pressure and a fatter line with your dark pressure,
Yeah.
and you
So as
stick
an
with it.
example, I'll show you.
Yeah.
This is 20, and this is as light as I can go,
Hmm.
and this is as heavy as I can go.
Okay. Okay.
So I've got
Yeah, and you have all
range.
this in between. Yeah. Now, are
Yeah.
you using any kind of steady? What do they call that?
Stabilization.
Stabilization. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine's set to 15. If I'm pulling long lines, like say
Hmm.
for instance, if I'm going to do this bow, I'll jack that up to like 22.
Hmm. To do
And
the curve.
yeah, and you
Hmm.
see how it follows.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a delay, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Uh huh.
And I'm not sure why.
Well, oh, isn't it always like that?
I guess so. I don't really I guess I don't
Oh,
really think about
yeah.
it.
A lot of programs do that.
Okay. I kind of go with it, I kind of figure
It,
out, oh,
it,
this is
it's what I'm. It's all coming to me now. Maybe. Clip Studio is doing this in real time, whereas Sketchbook
mm,
Pro does it after. So you draw
oh,
the line
interesting.
and then it corrects it. So you see the
Right.
original line that you drew, and then you see it snaps into the curve.
That's right.
Whereas in Clip Studio, it's doing it in real time. So that's probably taking extra processing power to do this. What else is I going? Oh, so if you had to draw that arrow that she's holding in her right
Hmm.
hand, how do you use a line tool?
See, this is the thing that I think this is worth mentioning. So if I were to, I made another layer. If I hold the Shift key down
Yeah.
and I pull it, um,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
it only gives me a maximum
Mm-hmm.
choice
Yeah.
for that brush.
You don't
Super
have
annoying.
you don't have the option of pressure.
No, so that means I would have to lay down a guide or use a line tool.
Yeah, isn't it they do have a ruler tool.
Right.
There is a ruler tool that you could use. Yeah, but you
Yeah.
can't get thick to thin by using the line tool that you're using right now.
No, not
It
really. I
yeah,
can cheat it. I can sort of change the perspective a little bit
right.
on it, but
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, it's not the best choice. That's
Hmm.
kind of like why I use the stabilization as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Again,
Yeah.
it's a little bit lazy, um, a little bit rock and roll. I know. Stupid. Dad jokes. Hello, not a dad. Working on it.
Not a
No, not
dad.
working on it.
Hmm.
But yeah, so one of the things that I like about Mark's work is that he still uses this bouncy line technique.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you
Yep.
have thicks and thins, and
Yep.
it's just
Yep.
the subtlety that you can get from it is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
And to ignore it is
Mhm.
it's at your peril.
Your peril. Yep.
But yeah, I really enjoy the way he leaves some things to be like just a shape,
Mhm.
like the say. So for instance, this fist. Let me take the stabilization down. Oh, it's up to 100. That's why it got weird.
Yeah. It's dragging. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. Let me erase this. But like with his
Zoom. Can you zoom in on it?
no,
Uh, there you go.
it's going against my rules.
I
Um,
know.
so if you zoom in on this hand, like
Yeah.
Lance mentioned, he has a tendency to sort of hint at certain features,
Yep.
and you can sort of build a hand off of all these little marks without actually drawing the individual fingers. Because sometimes when you do that, when you draw the individual fingers or put in too much detail, it looks very tedious
Mhm.
and not as attractive.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Hands are something I think that plague almost every artist, at least at the beginning.
except
Still.
Albert Dorn.
Yeah.
You
True.
remember Albert Dorn?
Uh-huh. Yep.
He's got
Yep.
those sausage fingers on
Yep.
everybody. And yet, even the ladies look. He
Yeah.
even can do ladies' hands nicely.
Yeah, it
So
still works. Yep.
yeah.
So, does anyone out there have any questions on anything that we've been
Mm.
discussing? Anything that I'm asking all the questions of Shane here, but I'm sure you guys must have some, or anything that I covered briefly when I did my example storyboard frame. Love to know what you guys would like to know or like to learn,
Sure.
or if we could further expound upon something.
And also, it's worth noting if you have a question after the live cast, if
Hmm.
you go to our Substack, what's our
Yep.
Substack URL, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Just beyond the process
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, just beyond the, here, I'll put it down at the bottom here.
That's a good idea.
So beyond the process.art. Yep.
I'm doing a thing called Mailbag, which you can just ask whatever questions you want, and we'll actually go a little more in depth, and we might even use examples. So
Hmm.
that's always a nice resource to
Yep.
utilize. The the other thing I wanted to mention
Mhm.
too is we're doing an uncommon inking tool challenge that
Mhm.
is going to end soon, and you can vote on our YouTube community panel of what uncommon inking tool I should ink the next video in. And
Yeah.
there's some pretty crazy tools up there. I'm a little worried that people are going to pick the hardest one.
I think that's leading now, isn't it?
It is
And the
actually,
vote, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to
right. No, influence
encourage
anyone.
people.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh!
So
But
if people want to vote, where do
yeah,
they vote?
they can vote on the YouTube community section or at
Okay.
the
Let me,
Substack.
okay, let me put a let me see if I could do like a drop a link in there for our community.
The community one is just a general community, a general link, but the Substack link is probably a little more direct.
Oh,
But either way, I'm going to collate all those
okay.
votes, and on September 4th, I'm going to announce the winner on our community section. So it's kind of, if you stay tuned, you'll know exactly what kind of pain I'm signing up for. I actually did want to try to ink a comic page with a chicken foot, but I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work.
Uh, that's
So,
great.
um, yeah,
So let me see. So there is there a page on our Substack? Is that what you did? You created
I
a
thought
page for
I did put like a little entry up in there.
for
You might be able to
voting.
find it, but
I'm gonna just I'm gonna share our community page, and
yeah,
then that way people can vote through there as well.
that's great.
So I'll drop this in the chat here.
So there's several tools, and I'll see if I can remember them all. One is a toothbrush, which I wish I could. I actually I name all the tools because I think it's important to name your enemies. So one is a toothbrush. I think that's called the Swinton.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One is a piece of bamboo, which is called the Mafuni. And these are named after famous actors, by the way. One is the Olivier, which I think is a. Is that the one that's the ruling pen?
Let me see if I could
And the
find.
Bronson is the stick, just a piece of Japanese maple, and then the what's the other one? The Brando.
Yeah, I'm looking at the community page. You didn't name them though. You have A, B,
No,
C,
that one
D,
that
E.
and that one I just have A, B,
Yeah,
C.
there's a brush,
Yeah,
a fat brush essentially. Did you already name that one? And
the
then
toothbrush.
no, no, just a thick brush.
Oh, that's the yeah. It's an oil. It's a hog bristle oil painting brush.
Yeah,
Oh boy, yeah.
and then you have a palette knife.
Palette knife. Yeah, that might be the Brando.
Let me see here. I'll put this. I'll try and drop this down in the chat too. So people can actually see it.
What's interesting about Mark Schultz's work is that it's clear that he's a fan of Frazetta and a lot of the guys like Wally Wood, EC artists. So I'm kind of bending the tool in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the shading, like that classic 1950s sort of thing. It's good to zoom
Nice.
out every so often to see
Yeah,
the
for sure.
balance of all your line weights. But with the uncommon inking tool contest or whatever, I'm not even sure what
Yeah.
I want to call it. I
Yeah.
haven't really figured out what I'm going to ink.
Right. I think it's probably going to depend on which tool
exactly.
is chosen.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you need something that's going to be kind of large and messy, or
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to be able to get too detailed with any of them, except for the
That's
bamboo, maybe.
yeah. Whatever it is I do is going to be large.
Hmm.
That I do know. So it'll be it, everything will be uncommon. I'll be in very shaky on very shaky ground.
Yeah.
I'd almost do it live, but I'm afraid that there'd be too much swearing and
Or breaking of the tools.
breaking of the tools.
Mm.
And you might see me cry, and I
Yeah.
don't want to share that.
Hmm.
I don't want to
Yeah.
share those private moments.
We'd all love to see that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Another thing I wanted to cover too is obviously the pricing in comic books when it comes to comic book work.
Yes.
It's interesting. Like when you're thinking about breaking into comics, because a lot of people say, "How do you break into comics?" And it's the same. It's the same answer every time. Do comics. Just do comics. The entry into doing comics has been so lowered that anyone who can put together 22 pages can run a Kickstarter, find a fan base, and start building it. Or they can go to Webtoons, or they can go to Tapas and post any of their comic book work. And that's the only way you're going to know if you're built for it, because you won't know if you can finish 22 pages in a month. You won't know if you're that disciplined to take on Batman or Spider-Man or any of those books unless you go through the rigors of doing it on your own, because money isn't going to change how fast you work or how involved you're going to be. And even though it's a huge and heavy lift publishing a book on your own, or getting your work out there, it's kind of like, that's how you get through, what do you call it, the gauntlet,
Hmm.
the flames of that forge who you are as a creative. I know when I first started out, I was doing a lot of pinups in the backs of books for people, and I happened to do stuff for people who liked it, and they ended up wanting me to do work for them on other projects, and so that kind of got me in front of them. And it was easy as just asking people, "Hey, do you need a free pinup or whatever for your book?" Or at some point maybe you're good enough to do covers. And those early days, pinups and such, you don't make any money doing that.
Hmm.
You may make
Right.
money doing covers, but it's
Yeah.
touch and go.
Oh, let's see. Trial by Fire, says Neo.
Trial by Fire.
Yeah.
It's a great heavy metal song. Yeah.
So I'm curious, out of those watching here, I know you guys are pretty shy except for Neo and Robert. How many people are here for storyboarding, or how many people are here for comic book art, or
Mm,
for both? Like, do we have just people who are storyboard artists? Do we have people who are just comic book artists, or just
that's a good
hobbyists, or
that's a good
what?
question.
Yeah. So let us know.
Yeah. Because
So
I will scrap this right now
yeah.
and do storyboards in a
No, no,
heartbeat.
no, no. But we're always trying to find out more about our audience.
That's true.
Storyboarding. Kent says storyboarding. Thanks for answering, Kent. All right,
Thank
there
you.
we go. All right. So, Kent,
Mm.
can you tell us? You don't have to write a monologue or anything, but just briefly how you got into storyboarding, or what made you interested in actually doing storyboarding. Like for me, I was interested in comics first. I wanted to be a comic book artist, and then I went to school and studied film and found out what storyboarding was, and that's what kind of led me, because I thought, well, I could combine comic books with filmmaking and do storyboarding. So okay, so let's see here. Egidio del Chele, I believe. If I'm butchering your pronunciation, I'm very sorry. Egidio del Chele. I'm a pro animation storyboard artist who wanted to be a comic book artist. Oh, see, well, there you go.
Nice.
That's what I would. I wanted to be a comic book artist as well, and ended
That's
up
cool.
being a storyboard artist. Yeah, very cool. So this is something, Egidio, that we need to find out more about, because neither of us have done animation for. I'm sorry, storyboards for animation.
Right.
Not in a pipeline like I'm sure is what you do in the studio. I've done storyboards for animated projects, but that's different.
Yeah.
And let's see, Neo. What's Neo say? I'm a hobbyist, just looking to hear about the industry. I'm not a pro artist. I just always wanted to do comics when I was younger, but now that I'm older, working a desk job, I want to go back
There you go.
and pursue my passion. Here we go. Continues on. Pursue my passion as an adult. Very good, Neo. Well,
That's
good for
awesome.
you. Yeah, that is awesome.
I mean, that's how I did it for a number of years. It was like working two jobs. I'd come home after a long day and I would work until I'd go to bed. And
Yep.
that's
Yep.
how I've published 3 different graphic novels.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not for everyone, but
No.
you'll find out soon enough if it is, because either your partner will leave you or they'll support you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Kent answered my question here. So I had lofty ambitions to direct films. So did I. I still
Wow.
kind of do, but studied filmmaking and found storyboarding as my niche. Very good. Thank you
Nice.
for answering it. All right. That's cool. I think a lot of storyboard artists go into storyboarding because they wanted to be directors, or they still want to, which is, I think it's a
Yeah.
great way actually to learn about directing, because you're not only, I mean, even if you were to just break it down yourself,
Mm.
you're learning about filmmaking, but the fact that you get to work with a more experienced filmmaker, or they should be anyway, and a
Mhm.
director, you're learning, working with that person, and it's all going towards your film knowledge. And so someday, it'll prepare you for when the time is right to actually direct your first film.
Right.
And Neo says, I'm at the relative beginning of my journey, just studying anatomy right now.
Oh,
Very
nice.
good. That's important. That's obviously important. Yep.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see here.
The
So
funny thing is you'll never stop learning anatomy. I mean,
yeah.
I'm still learning things and I'm like, "Oh, that's how the elbow works." And like
Mhm.
things you don't pay attention to or haven't. It's kind of like animation. Like you can
Mhm.
focus on one thing for a long time and get really good at it, but then
Yeah.
you drop this other plate and you're like, "Oh, I need to get back to that."
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It is hard to keep up with everything. And then Egidio says, "Good job on my name, Lance." All right. Well, I do speak Italian, but I'm imagining this is Spanish.
Mm.
Egidio. Because if it was Italian, it would be Chele.
Mm.
Egidio del Chele. All right. Well, welcome, Egidio, and thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. That
All right.
Italian's finally coming
Yeah, it's
into
coming in handy. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, let's see. Egidio says, I use my middle name Vic to keep me from giving pronunciation lessons.
Oh, there you go.
That's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, the to sort of interrupt you a little bit,
Yeah.
the thing
Oh,
about
it is Italian. Hang on one
is it?
second.
Oh,
So,
is it?
Egidio, wouldn't it be Chele instead of Chele? Yes or no? Okay, Shane, go ahead.
No, no, that's fine. Is that once you understand or once you get a better understanding of your abilities as a comic book artist or creator, then then you have something to show and share, and you can get a table and start mingling with people. And what
Mhm.
generally happens is people hire people or collaborate with people that they've met. It's harder to get engaged with somebody who is a faceless creator.
True.
and and if you find people who are at your level, it's and who are as passionate about pursuing this craft, it's good to get in early with them, because what happens time and again is you find people who are on their way up and they're outpacing you, or they've already made connections, and it's harder to find people to collaborate with. So it's good to find that community and to embrace it as much as you can, as often as you can,
Yes.
because repetition breeds a certain level of, what do you call it, connectivity.
And then Egidio says, tomato, tomato.
Ah, now there's a question.
Well, I'm going to go with Kayla
Okay,
since you're Italian. 'Cause
respect.
yeah, respect.
I'm not gonna say my Italian words because
No, don't. Please don't.
Lance doesn't like doesn't like it. Whoopsie. You're not supposed to say it that way. I'm sorry. No.
No harm.
But when it comes to actually getting paid doing comics,
Yeah.
it's interesting because getting a book published is one thing, getting paid is another, and getting repeated work is yet and another whole level of the comic industry. And so I don't know how people stay in a job, but they always have to have a few irons in the fire, as it were.
True.
And if you're not working on your own project while trying to collaborate with other people, it makes it harder. So you're going to be working a lot. And if you're an animator trying to get into comics, you're probably going to be really well trained to just work a lot, and you're probably going to have a really good skill set that you can draw from. So I am a little envious of animators who did the hard work and got really, really good training. I've always thought that would have been a nice path to had gone down, but I was like, man, they work an awful lot. But then once I got into comic books, I was like, oh, maybe it's about the same.
Yeah.
It just depends on how much you want to put into it too.
Right.
So
yeah, I think, depending on your style, can also determine how fast you go, right?
Absolutely.
Like there are some guys, like you look at David Finch, who's an amazing comic book artist, but he's got a very detailed, realistic style.
Right.
So he's not going to be able to go as quickly as someone who draws maybe a little more, not more cartoony, but just less realistic, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah,
more stylized.
Yeah, there you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. I mean, and that's something it does take some time, is to find your natural style, because not every style fits every kind of book. You might have a style that works really well for horror books, but not necessarily for superhero books.
Yeah.
But that also means you're not going to get hired as much. So it's a really strange game to figure out, where you fit in, and style does have a large effect on how you get hired. So finding something a little more universal is going to be helpful in your journey.
And I know you and I both are kind of either fans or just say guilty of changing our styles
a little bit.
Yeah. So and sometimes it's fun. I mean, it makes it complicated sometimes for a client to know what they're getting,
right?
Because they see all these different styles. It doesn't even look like the same artist. But on the other hand, if they're looking for something just in one particular style, then they might bypass certain artists who aren't able to do that style, right? Like if you can't do that, then you're not going to be recommended or even considered for the job.
Right.
So it can be a crutch, but it also can be a bonus as well to have different styles.
Right. I think I've always admired people who had excellent drafting ability, and I wanted that for myself. So if somebody wanted a book, that was a historical thing or had cars or horses or whatever, that I would not be deterred by that project. And so sometimes that can be the bonus. If you don't have a particular style that is leaning one way or the other than just be an excellent draftsperson.
Yes, exactly.
Now, some of the
Yeah.
pricing for getting paid is in comics is always in terms of page rate, and that can vary wildly from company to company and project to project. When you're starting out, which is kind of strange because it's like there's not necessarily starting out prices, but if you're not a name, which the industry tends to look at, then you're going to be making a lot less than somebody who does have a name. So
True.
there's at the big two, as far as I remember, they have pricing tiers, like A, B, and C. And the A artists obviously get paid pretty well. So if you're a penciler, you could get paid $300 to $500 or more a page. If you're an inker, it's less than that. I don't know what those numbers are at the moment, but if you're just starting out and you're like a C-level penciler or whatever, you can make about 150 a page.
And how, just so people have a frame of reference for you, how long does it take you to pencil a page and then to ink it? What's the total amount of time, I guess, for each phase?
Well, kind of going back to what you were saying before,
Yeah,
a lot
it depends.
is based on content.
Yeah.
Like I was doing a Motorhead project for Z2 Comics, and I was penciling and inking it entirely myself. So a lot of it had to do with had reference involved. So that would take a little bit more time. So I typically pencil between a page and a half to 2 pages a day, which is kind of I wouldn't say it's the industry standard. It used to be the industry standard, but because the level of detail has been like really bumped up with people around the world, because there's a lot of people from Italy and South America that are doing some really amazing books. They also ink their work, and they're also putting in grayscale. So if I was just inking, I could ink 2 pages a day pretty consistently. That's never an issue. But I never really grayscale stuff because you don't get paid extra. It's you're just doing extra work, but you're more or less guiding the colorist to
that was going to
not
be my
screw
next
up.
question, is to explain to everyone what grayscaling, like what benefit that has.
Right. You're directing the light, how the light should look. And because people are working mostly in Clip Studio or digitally, they're just, I guess it's just easier for them to just dip into the grayscale and their brush kit and start laying in grayscale. Or and if they're working traditionally, they'll use gray markers. And I'm not a fan of using any markers in art because they're not archival. Even if the company says they're archival, they're not archival. They're just not. They're kind of like watercolors, essentially. If light gets on them, they're going to degrade. They're going to bleed over time. So keep that in mind when you're buying sketches or whatever, putting money into these pages. Because nothing is worse than buying a page and then watching it disintegrate over time. I've seen John Byrne pages that he had inked with, I think it might have been a Sharpie at one point, and they're all fuzzed out.
Oh no!
It's like,
dude, yeah, that's a loss.
That's a huge loss because it's not like just a normal book. It's Fantastic Four. And you're like, huh? How could you have done that? So it really behooves the artist to know their tools, and if you're going to create original art for sale, it really is your responsibility to warn your customers or clients like what they have to do to maintain the art.
Sure.
So it's kind of like an unspoken rule, but it's one that everyone should know.
All right, so here's my let's see what Neo had a comment. I was going to ask something, but let me pop this up. Good. I thought Copics were good watercolors, and good watercolors were archival.
No. I mean, okay, when I say archival, a lot depends on the substrate, the paper that you're using.
Mhm.
Um, and you have to use UV protection, UV protected glass or museum glass if you're going to
Okay.
frame anything. But in and of themselves, if they're exposed, like watercolors is a lot more archival than markers because they have either an alcohol or a benzene. I don't know if it's benzene, but the xylene base.
Okay.
I have sketchbooks that I can show you that have markers that I've used that are chart pack markers, for instance, or barrel or design markers, and all of those are bleeding. And that's why I don't even go towards the Copic markers, or that a lot of people use.
Yeah.
They haven't been around long enough for people to even say, yeah, they're archival. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's what's
Yeah.
interesting is
I
when
see.
people make that statement. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Wait after 70 years. See.
Yeah. I mean, I've got stuff that's 20 years old that's pretty fuzzed out. So just, FYI.
Yeah. That's good. That's good to think about before you start something, depending on what it is. I guess, I mean, if you're doing a storyboarding job for a client, if you were doing it traditionally, you wouldn't care.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a comic,
Watercolors and markers are not light fast, which means if light hits them directly, they will lose their intensity.
okay.
And so that's why you have to have the museum glass. You can't have them in direct light of any kind. So you don't get to enjoy them as much on the wall unless it's in like a shadowed area. Like all my watercolors or gouache paintings that I've purchased from other artists are on north facing walls. So pure light never hits them.
Oh,
And
that's smart.
they look good, because they're in really a well balanced lighting situation.
Right. Huh.
So,
It's good advice.
well,
Good advice.
it's one of those things you had to learn the hard way.
Yeah. You're like, why is this fading?
Yeah. And I learned it. Luckily, I learned it from John Byrne because when I saw those pages, I was like, "What happened?" And then someone said, "Oh, he inked these with a marker," and I was like, "Oh no!" So yeah, I was like, "Marker's bad."
Like Frankenstein, fire bad.
Exactly.
Marker's bad.
Yeah. And if I'm wrong, then I'd love for someone to show me the evidence around that, because Copic may have a different formula that is actually archival and has been rigorously tested, and I don't know, because I don't use them, because I've never trusted markers beyond all 3 or 4 varieties that I've used over time. So if someone has better information, put it in the chat. Show me a link to a website. I'm always willing to learn and change my mind. So,
So I'm curious to know how many guys watching, or women, ladies and gentlemen watching, are traditional artists, and how many work just digitally, or how many, if you do both, let us know that too. And then the follow-up question would be, if you're a digital artist, what software do you use to draw? I'm always curious.
yeah, I do miss Sketchbook Pro. It's just such a fun program.
Yeah, it gets out of your way.
Yeah,
so it just lets you draw. And I know a lot of people, and you're one of them who used to draw in Photoshop. I don't know if you still do.
yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never. I mean, I did when I first started drawing digitally, but I can't anymore. It's just because it's not really. I know that there are third-party plugins that
Right.
make it easier to draw.
Lazy
in Photoshop.
Nizumi. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have any of those, so I've always struggled trying to draw. Let's see. Neo says mostly traditional, but when I do digital, I use Photoshop. All right.
Nice.
Yep.
I've been using Krita, which is amazing. It's open source and it's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. Neo says that she said, I did use Krita for a minute, though. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Well,
Yep.
Perfect.
And Egidio, both digital plus Clip Studio Pro and SketchBook Pro. All right.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah. And Egidio, when you if you do wait, Clip Studio can you do onion skinning as well? Do you know? Like can it, because SketchBook Pro has an onion skinning feature where you can draw out animations, like hand drawn animations.
I
And I
feel
wasn't
like you
sure. I thought
can.
it does. Egidio, help us out here. Does
I can't remember.
does Clip Studio have an onion skinning feature similar to SketchBook Pro where you can actually do like an animation? Let's
Oh,
see.
yeah.
We're waiting. Kent says primarily digital. SketchBook Pro on iPad. Oh, cool. Photoshop on CPU. I haven't cracked Procreate. Oh, Procreate is my personal favorite on the iPad.
I
Yeah, Shane doesn't like it.
don't. It's weird, man. When you find a tool that fits your hand,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I've
Yeah.
struggle with it. I really, really enjoy heavy paint
Mm,
because it's so weird and abstract, and
yeah.
I can still control it. And yeah, wow. I spend way too much time polishing the work in Procreate, and I still end up with nothing of value.
Yeah. Well, again, it's to each their own, like whatever
Yeah.
works best for you. So Egidio says yes. So I think that means Clip Studio does have an onion skinning feature.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then he says, I meant Storyboard Pro, not Sketchbook Pro. Okay. So Storyboard Pro, that's a controversial thing for some people just because of the price.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people would use it if it wasn't so expensive. So most people just starting out, they end up using Sketchbook Pro or Photoshop or Procreate. Mostly Procreate, I would say, if you're starting out because it's so cheap. It's only, I think it's $20 still.
Yes.
So yeah, one-time fee. You're not paying a subscription price or anything like that. So it's very popular. Right. But yeah, Storyboard Pro rather. I've never personally used it because I've never wanted to dish out that much money. I think it's a yearly fee of like
$700.
Is it that much per year? I wasn't sure if there was initial buy-in and then it's cheaper.
Oh,
I don't know. I've never
that's a
had
good
it,
point.
but I just know it's expensive to maintain.
The license. Yeah.
And Kent says Procreate is not intuitive for me coming from Photoshop. So yeah, I could see that. There was a learning curve for me as well, but once you kind of figure out the basics, and especially it's different too because it's touch capable. You can use, 2 fingers to do this or that, or pinching and zooming, obviously, and then undos and all that. You can do a lot with just gestures that you can't do, obviously, in Photoshop. So
right.
it's a different type of tool. It's programmed differently.
So, Lance, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
How do you typically get your storyboard gigs these days?
So I typically get mine from repeat customers.
Okay.
Or repeat clients, I should say. And then I also do have an agent, or a rep is probably a better term to describe.
What percentage of work do you get from your rep versus repeat?
It's probably 70 of my own and then 30% from her.
Okay.
So I think it used to be a lot more, but for whatever reason, I'm getting more just like repeat. And then I have like, I don't know, every once in a while someone will just find me
right
online and they'll hire me. So
where did they find you through?
Probably just by Googling storyboard artist or something like that.
Not like Behance or your website or anything like that?
Well, I have an ArtStation. Yeah.
Okay.
So I pay for the pro version of ArtStation.
Really?
So yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's totally worth it because you get a separate website then. So you have your ArtStation profile and then you also have your own website that you can put anything on. And plus it gives you, not that I've been taking advantage of the blogging feature until recently, but it gives you the ability to blog.
Oh, nice.
And then you also get discounts, like if you sell stuff in their marketplace.
Oh, cool.
And you get a little badge next to your name, which says pro, which is very cool.
Ooh, badges.
Yeah, I know. It makes you look even more professional than you really are.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But no, I've been using. I used to have my own website, like standalone, and then probably 4 or 5 years ago, I just switched everything to ArtStation because most people, even though you can add different pages of like text or information, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
most people when they're hiring you for a storyboard job, they want to find your work, and ArtStation I think is the best at that. Like as soon as you go on, like your work is in their face.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's pretty much what they're going to hire you based on. They're not going to start reading where you grew up or what movies you like or anything
Right.
like that. Like they want to see what work you can do.
Okay.
And then I think I have a resume on there as a PDF that they could download if they really want to get into more detail.
How much are you paying per year for that?
It's funny. I just got an email from them saying that it's going to be renewed in like early September. I think it's like I want to say $84 or something like that.
And that's cheaper than
Let's
web
see.
hosting and domain upkeep,
I
right?
think so. I mean, I guess it depends on where you get your domain hosting, but yeah, I would think so. I think it's a good deal for everything that you get.
Okay.
Especially if I start actually taking advantage of some of the extra features. Like I said, I'm going to try and start blogging more. And then also, when I start selling some digital products in the store, you'll be able to make more. They take less of a commission on that.
Sure.
So,
No, that's a good point.
yeah.
And speaking of blog features, our
Yeah.
Substack is rife with information.
Yes, it is.
Every
It
month
is.
we try to do a artist profile where called Long Story Short, where we talk about we'll just find artists who work in storyboards, comics, games, and films, and just ask them questions and try to pick their brain as to how they got into doing what they do and what they see their future looking like.
Yep.
It's been a lot of fun because we're finding a lot of different people from all walks of life and
Hmm.
learning along the way. But I
Yep.
also we try to do articles on storytelling and the craft of comic books and storyboarding, how to run your business. Try to offer a lot of business tips since we've been doing it for collectively 60 years.
60 years. Yeah. 30.
God, ooh,
Yeah.
we should lower that number. It's a haunting number. But
Yeah.
hopefully, if you've seen the page and it's something of interest to you, definitely leave comments, suggest it to other people, or even leave a comment to ask us to cover something of your particular
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah. We're still, as I mentioned earlier in this live, we're still trying to figure out who our audience is and what you guys
Yeah.
want. Um, so that's why I ask all these questions because I'm really curious to know like how many people are here for comics, how many people are for storyboards, for visual storytelling in general. What are your main issues? Like what are the hurdles that you're trying to overcome in your position, whatever it is? If you're just getting started out, if you're pivoting to a new career and
Mm,
trying to
yeah.
to change, like Neo was mentioning. Um, so yeah, let us know, and then maybe we can cover a topic in the future that'll help you out because we're always looking for ideas for to produce content.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely. And it's fun too because it gives us a chance to dig deep and explore some of the things that we've done, and
mhm.
also look at current trends too. Because there's a lot of things out there that are changing the landscape of freelancing and doing the kind of work that we love doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So
Yeah.
we're kind of getting
So
close to finishing this,
yeah.
but
So does anyone have any questions on since we just mentioned that?
yeah.
You guys are warming up now. You're dropping some comments in, which is great. But
And
if
feel
you have
free
any
to,
questions that you want us to discuss now or later in a video, like if we need to
yeah,
go more in depth,
okay,
crickets.
that's okay. I like crickets. If given an opportunity, I eat crickets for breakfast,
All right.
especially if they're
Mm.
chocolate covered.
I don't eat breakfast for that reason.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
you're missing out, son.
Mm.
You're missing out now.
Mhm.
Hands are always tough
Mhm.
when it
Yeah.
comes to inking them. They always can look a little bit horsey, especially if you're inking feminine hands. So less
Mhm.
detail is better in
Mhm.
many cases. Keep it simple.
Yeah. That might be a. Have you ever done a video on how to draw hands?
Nope.
Mm.
The reason
Yeah.
for that is because I don't there's so many other artists out there that do it better. And
Mhm.
there's books like that where I've learned were, Andrew Loomis books. He had a book specifically for head and hands,
Mhm.
and I don't think I could do better than that.
Hmm.
My hands, people or art directors have said that when I draw hands, they're fairly expressive, and I like
Yeah.
drawing expressive hands. So I must have really drawn. I think I drew a lot of hands when I was younger, and that really kind of stuck with me. And so
Hmm.
uh,
Very
I,
good.
it wasn't
Yeah.
something that I struggled with as much.
Yeah. Well, the problem with hands is, well, I mean, there's so many parts to them for one thing, but
Hmm.
also they're always in different positions, so it's
Right?
hard to know. From like a head, you take a head for example. Uh, Egidio says Andrew Loomis,
Yep.
and Neo says the Loomis books are what I'm working through right now.
Those are great.
Hello, excellent.
Also, check out the
Yeah,
Michael Hampton book on anatomy. That's a really really good book.
Michael
Um,
Hampton.
Michael Hampton, yes, I found his book later in life, and again, this is what I'm saying is like you never really end your learning, but his is about expressive anatomy, which is very powerful when it comes to natural creating natural looking figures. It's nice to learn the mechanics and how to build up a hand or an arm or a rib cage, but then
Yeah.
to put them all together and to make them look very natural, that is that is something I think a lot more people could benefit from.
Okay. I just dropped his name in the comments. Michael
Perfect.
Hampton, book on anatomy. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think I interrupted you.
So no. Oh, I was talking about hands and how like if you take a head, for example,
Hmm.
once you know how to draw a head, it's pretty easy, or it becomes easier, I guess I should say, to draw it in different perspectives and rotations, like if it's, 3/4
Right.
profile, that sort of thing. Whereas hands, there's so many moving parts to them. There must be like an infinite number of positions that a hand can be put in and from different angles and all that. And especially like now you're drawing one that's even foreshortened with the fingers. So foreshortening adds another element.
Right.
I think it's really hard to draw someone doing this, right? Like pointing directly at
Mm,
the camera with their finger coming straight out at you, because
right.
it's hard to make that finger look like it's protruding outwards and not just like flat against someone's fist.
Exactly. That's why it's
So,
always good to have reference.
yes.
When you do a lot of these online training courses, in some cases they'll just have you trace hands and then sort of break down the anatomy underneath the
Hmm.
skin and to figure out,
Hmm.
okay, this is where the bones are, this is how the muscles work, and it is one way to kind of get you on fast tracked in there, but
Yeah.
to intuitively learn, it's good to do life drawing sessions. It's because when you see things in real world 3D, it changes the way you perceive them as opposed to
Yeah.
just drawing from photographs. So getting a mix of all that is really really good.
True.
How did you
True.
get skilled at drawing human anatomy, or were you just
Probably.
gifted?
No, I wish. No, no. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to be a comic book artist,
Right,
and my favorite comic book artist, as I know you well know, is John Buscema, or was
right.
John Buscema, still is. And so I would just I would spend hours copying his work.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, and just redrawing pages out of mostly Conan stuff,
Oh,
or Silver
sure.
Surfer. Conan and Silver Surfer are my two favorites. So,
Nice.
and then I also got the book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way,
Mm,
and looking at Frank Frazetta's books, and although not that he's probably not the best one to learn anatomy from because his anatomy is very exaggerated.
sure.
But just I mean, I think I do have some anatomy books, but I know for a fact as a kid, like I didn't read any, and I wasn't
Mm.
like drawing out of the anatomy books. I was just drawing from my favorite artists.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So my anatomy is probably not like super accurate or anything
Okay.
because of that. But although recently I've been drawing a lot more from like real life. I'm
Nice
sorry, not the real life, but photographs, like
reference.
reference material. Yeah, exactly. Like on ArtStation, they have several guys who sell these photographic packs of people in action and that sort of
Yeah.
thing, or just poses in costume sometimes. And so I've downloaded several of those, and every once in a while, like if I want to warm up, I'll just sketch those. And I'm trying to, when I'm doing it, I'm trying to study the anatomy too, and
Right.
I think also I use myself a lot.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I know. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, they do.
But I mean, that's why I have a mirror next to my drawing table here. So if I,
Oh, okay. That
yeah, it's
makes
not because I just like to look over and say,
I
"Hey,
thought you were just
who's that
lonely.
sexy guy?" No, no, nothing like that. No, it's like if I have a problem, if I'm doing a storyboard, and like there's a weird pose or something like that, then I'll just do it in the mirror quickly, and then I kind of like I take a mental snapshot with my mind, and then I just translate it to the storyboard. So that's I guess that's primarily, it's just like solving problems like that.
I was gonna ask
That's
you that, like, when you get a job,
I just,
like, do you reference it,
mm.
or do you just are you able to draw it all out of your head, or
It depends. Like cars, I still can't draw out of my head. I still
Mm,
need reference for cars,
right.
especially different perspectives and so forth. But yeah, so those are always tricky. Um, I mean, I feel like I could draw a human in most any perspective at this point, like really
Okay.
low angle, high angle. Uh, I don't know. For example, the last job I did, and
Mhm.
I think I might have coined a phrase.
Mhm.
Actually, it was Laurie, my wife, who came up with, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. I call them mannequin boards. So I didn't have
Oh.
enough time to draw like all the details, like including hair and clothing.
Mm,
So I just drew figures, like anatomy figures,
okay.
to get the blocking down,
Nice.
and then I color coded each figure so they knew who was who. Um,
Wow.
and yeah,
That I think I remember this. Your deadline was, like, really tight.
yeah, it was pretty tight. It was pretty tight. So, and it was just a
Wow.
lot of boards to do in a short period of time, and I was like, I can't, I won't get these done. And I knew the most important thing is to get the composition and the blocking down and the movement, camera
Right.
movement, that sort of thing, so that everyone, when they go show up on set, everyone's on the same page. So
Good.
yeah. So
Wow.
Egidio is also a big John Buscema fan. Apparently, he did the same thing that
Nice.
I did. Yeah. So
Oh,
good
that's
job, Egidio.
spreading the
you,
love.
you learn from a master. Like, I mean, Buscema, I don't think there was anyone better, but
Yeah,
that
that's
can be argued. I know there's a lot of like huge Jack Kirby fans, which I understand, but
yeah, that's a different modality of comic
yeah,
creator.
yeah,
And all valid, but for different reasons.
yeah, yeah. I remember getting into arguments as a kid with my friends, who was the better
Wow.
artist, and You never did that? You didn't argue and like, oh no, he's so much, this so and so is so much better than.
No,
No?
not really.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I was just right all the time.
and it's carried into your adulthood.
See, some things don't change. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I suck. I'm sorry.
No. We all know you're joking.
Of course.
You think you're joking.
But am I?
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, it's funny. I liked, I think maybe too many artists to really choose one, and then
Mhm.
I was always more of a rule follower, and once I knew the rules, then I could break them, and it
Yeah.
was important that I start with correct anatomy. So my first anatomy book I actually stole from the public library.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're admitting that now.
Well, it is overdue by about 50 years. Whoops.
Do you still have it?
No.
Okay.
No, I think I sold it to traded it in at a used bookstore.
Did you rip the card out of the back of it? You know, like the
No,
punch
I
card?
did not. And it has a stamp on it. It's terrible. Kids, don't do this at home.
Oh my God, no.
But it was like the first book that I ever got. And I think I remember it was anatomy book, and the author was, his last name was Peck, Peck, and it was mostly watercolors of like bones and skeletons, and so
Watercolors.
yeah, like he used like, you know, black and white,
Like ink wash.
yeah, like
Probably
ink
ink wash. Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. And it was, like I said, it was my introduction to anatomy. I was starved for it, and we didn't have art books or anything like that locally or at in where I grew up. And I think the next book I got was the Bern Hogarth book, which was absolutely terrible. It's just not a good book. His figures are very stiff.
Yeah.
If you are slavish about, you know, following his approach, then your work is going to look stiff. And that's why, you know, when I found Loomis, it was like, okay, this is better. We're getting somewhere. So
cool.
So yeah.
All right. So what do you think?
Getting close to finishing here.
Okay.
I mean, you know, you get the idea. We're just doing grass at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think we covered everything we wanted to cover?
Yeah, I mean, no one else is dropping any more comments and questions. Right. So yeah, I think this is good. I mean, we're going on 2 hours right now. So
oh heck yeah,
let people get back to their Saturday afternoon.
Exactly, and I'm sure we've got things we would like to do too.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me. I'll just stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing. Okay. Again, we wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. It was a lot of fun being able to share some insights and some of our drawing skills, and yeah, everything that we know about our craft of storytelling is open for discussion. So if you've got more questions after this cast, go to our Substack, check out the mailbag section that we well, not really a section, but if you want to leave comments there to ask questions, we'll pick something out and answer it extensively. If you want to participate in the Uncommon Inking Challenge and vote for Uncommon Tool, go to our YouTube community section, subscribe, do whatever you have to do to make sure you get more of what we have to offer.
Yeah, I didn't even mention subscriptions at all. But first of all, we really appreciate everyone who has subscribed.
Oh yeah,
you guys are fantastic. And then if anyone's out there watching right now and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps out our channel. So this is the first time and only time we've asked you. So it's not like we pestered the entire time.
Ask again.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but at least in this live video, we won't ever ask again.
Yeah.
So All right, gang. Thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We know it's a Saturday. You guys could be doing something.
Right. It looks like he's locked up. I'm not locked up. I'm still streaming. And as always, I'm Shane Patrick White. And this is Lance Ospina. And as always, thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.